Okay. Hi, Swati.
Hi, Manali.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, this episode of Gathering Genie is being recorded from lovely uh, Ghati Basot village
Mm.
ahead of Corbett. And I am Mana. I love hosting spaces for conversations that matter. And this series is to record stories of magical gatherings in personal, community, or professional spaces. And today I'm so excited to have this chat with Swati, who leads the India Fellowship Program. And they do lots of things very differently there. So I think she's going to talk about one of their magical gatherings today. So,
Right.
Swati, welcome.
Hi,
And
thank you.
yeah, and our first question today is, and I'm going to take a moment to show our questions.
Sure.
So, our first question today is, what do you notice about the way gatherings happen or have been happening usually?
Hmm. Um, the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this question is the way gatherings have been happening has been largely templatized. Right. So, for example, if I have to host a birthday party, I look at all the birthday parties I've attended until then, and then उसमें से कुछ combination लेके I'll host mine. Whatever I like from one or the other, I'll mix them up, and then I'll make my own gathering. I think that has been the traditional way, or the more common way of doing this. And then from there, I think. When people got bored of this template, they started outsourcing the gatherings completely, which was the other extreme end of, somebody else planning and organizing and hosting on your behalf. And then the who we call the event planners or the event organizers, they have a template which they tweak for every every client or customer, right? Um, I think what I do or we do in our work is to maintain a balance, which is neither too personalized nor too templatized, but what caters to the group, to the audience who's coming for the gathering. That is something that we consciously try to do, to not get stuck in a given template or our own, you know, ways of doing things. But to answer the question that you asked, I think the first instinct is to do it the way we have seen other people
Correct.
doing it,
Yeah.
or to completely outsource it to somebody else.
Hmm, 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 hmm. Nice. So, of course, the next question is about what motivated you to take the road or path not tread. And so, tell us about uh, just a moment. Yeah, tell us about the gathering you chose to host differently, or where you wanted to take that middle path.
Right, right. So, in my work, because I lead a youth leadership program, a fellowship program, the focus of most of the gatherings is learning,
Hmm.
because it is a experiential learning program. Uh, but this time, the gathering that I want to talk about was more of a network meet, which happened in March
Hmm.
last month. And it was unique in the sense that it was the focus was not learning so much. The focus was for people to get to know each other, or if they already know each other, then to meet again and reconnect, because during the COVID years, at least three and a half years, people had not met each other so much.
Hmm.
And when I say people, this is across age groups, across the kind of work they are doing, all somewhat associated to the non-profit space, but still 20-year-olds to 70-year-olds. Uh, and this was about 200 people
Wow.
coming
Hmm.
together.
Hmm.
So the things that I had to keep in mind were that nobody gets bored,
Hmm.
but also nobody is overstimulated. Right.
You're all about these two extremes, huh? And finding the middle path.
Right. Yeah. So to have enough spaces where people
Hmm.
can talk one on one,
Hmm.
and also things that they can enjoy together. So, for example, we had arranged for a dance performance, a
Hmm.
classical dance performance,
Hmm.
or people had put up stalls where you can just go around and have a conversation, look at things, maybe buy some products if you like those.
Hmm.
So places where you are engaging with others,
Right.
places where you can just be by yourself,
Hmm.
and where you are also together
Hmm.
enjoying something with
Hmm.
other people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, yeah. Does that answer your question? Or
Yeah. Yeah. And was there something special that prompted you to want to make this network meet special and magical?
एक तो it was happening for the first time.
Yeah.
There was nothing to, there was no
Templatize.
benchmark. हाँ,
Yeah.
there was no benchmark, so to say.
Uh,
कि लास्ट टाइम ऐसे हुआ था
hmm.
तो इस टाइम ऐसे ही करना है या उससे कुछ अलग करना है, वो नहीं था. We had to really imagine
Hmm.
from the scratch. Uh, uh, that also has its advantages and disadvantages because you have the whole playground. Now
Yeah.
you have to decide where do you pitch yourself. Yeah.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think the initial planning was really hard,
Hmm.
because the people or the team who was planning it, all of them had their own ideas. They were
Hmm.
visualizing it in different ways.
Hmm.
To first come on a common ground or a common understanding कि ये purpose है, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That took some time, but
Hmm.
once that was clear, and thankfully all of us agreed that purpose is to have fun.
That's good. Yeah.
So once that was uh, uh, there was an agreement to that, I think then the rest of the
Hmm.
things became easier.
Hmm.
Ki how do we have fun? How do other people are coming who they have fun?
Right.
So then the activities became more clear. Ki acha
Hmm.
abhi if the purpose is fun, then what do we
Correct.
do to
That's
achieve
right.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So we'll go further deeper into your experience. Yeah. So this you already started telling us a bit. So tell us a bit more
Mhm.
about how did you design and host this. So you talked about some parts of it. And you talked about the experience of people being
Mhm.
sometimes alone, sometimes together.
Mhm.
So if you have to give us a sort of a journey of a person who came from the beginning till the end, how was would that experience have been for someone
Okay.
who came?
Um, so I think while planning and designing this, one main priority was the space where this
Hmm.
would happen. Because if the space is conducive, then there was confidence that we would manage the rest of the things well.
Right.
But if the space is not conducive, then we would be bothered with the
Hmm.
logistics
Hmm.
arrangements, and then uh, we would also be. I mean, by we, I mean the organizing
Hmm.
team
Hmm.
would
Hmm.
also be tired, and the participants would also not enjoy so much.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so I think we spent a lot of time on finalizing the space,
Mm.
but once that was done, I think that seemed like 50% of the work
Okay,
was done.
nice.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't pay attention enough to that, right? That how much the
Correct,
space impacts that
correct,
experience.
correct,
So,
correct.
what
And
were you looking for in the space?
we were looking for, of course, comfort,
Hmm.
because so many people were there, so nobody should feel uncomfortable, or those kind of things. So it had to be easily accessible,
Hmm.
first of all. And once people have reached inside, also it had to cater to things like the washroom has to be nearby.
Hmm.
If somebody if there's a disabled person, for example, the wheelchair facility has to be there. So those kind of things had to be taken care of, although we didn't need it,
Hmm.
but just in case it was
Hmm.
required, we had it at
Hmm.
least as
Hmm.
backup. And then uh, because the the gathering was vibrant. We knew that people are coming there for a reason. They know,
Mm.
most of them know each other.
Mhm.
So the space between them didn't have to be managed.
Right.
The space around them had to be
Nice.
pretty or aesthetically sound, or enough provisions for water, tea,
Mm.
food. So once that was sorted, I think we were good.
Mhm.
And then to answer about a person coming
Mm.
in, I think we didn't have, for example, we didn't have to give a lot of instructions. The
Right.
Google Map location was there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then once they entered the venue, they knew exactly where to go. So
Mm.
those kind of things were there to
Mm.
help them by the people in the venue itself.
Mm.
Then once they were there, we didn't have to introduce them to others because,
Right.
like I said, most of them knew most of other people,
Mm.
and then the ones they knew
Mm.
made sure they know the ones they don't know,
Oh,
right?
nice.
So,
Was that consciously sort of nudged that
uh,
they people have
not
to
so
sort of
much, not so much, but I think people realized
that?
if somebody doesn't know a lot of people, then
Mhm.
they made sure that they would
Nice.
introduce them to other people.
Mhm.
Because the ones who knew everyone
Mm.
were also running around so much that they couldn't afford to spend a lot of time with one or two people
Right.
constantly. So they were like, okay, meet this person and let me let me be with somebody
Mhm.
else.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that happened very organically.
Mm.
So we didn't have to worry about that because there was a lot of, I think there was a lot of faith and trust in
Mm.
people's ability to manage themselves.
Mm.
So there was no work required there.
And when you were doing this sort of design process, what were some of the challenges that you faced, like from the team or the organizers, like when even designing it in this way that things
Mm.
sort of, you once you set up, things should just sort of happen on their own.
Right,
So
right.
was there a challenge or a way you had to
On
navigate
the day
people's
of
stress?
the event, yes, because there was unexpected rain.
Oh yes.
Uh, so a part of the activities were planned outdoors.
Mhm.
So we had to, at the last minute, arrange them indoors, and then the space that was probably for 150 people now had to crunch with 200 people.
Mhm.
Right? So those last minute things were there, but otherwise, I think while designing, um one was the guest list was never getting finalized. And there were people coming from outside
Mhm.
also. This was hosted in Delhi, but there were
Mhm.
people traveling from all parts of the country.
Mhm.
So I think until the last 2 days, I was confused how many stay bookings are to be done. If somebody's travel is not booked, who will pick who from the railway
Mhm.
station or the airport? So those were things that uh, were making me anxious, if I can use that word.
Mhm.
um, Other than that, some logistics, like there were because there were musical performances, so which mic will be used? Uh,
Mhm.
will that be arranged? Who will arrange that? Because I have no knowledge of the
Mhm.
equipment, right? Similarly, if a photographer has to come, what things will they need?
Mhm.
So more logistics. If a bus had to be arranged to pick
Mhm.
up some people from one place to the other, if
Mhm.
buswala will come on time.
Mhm.
So more logistics, not so much the design in the other way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. So how did you manage to keep those parts fun as well?
I delegated some of it. I had to. I find it very hard to delegate things,
Mm.
but I could manage to do it.
Yeah.
So one person was responsible for the music band, one person was looking at the photographer with the bus
Mhm.
guy.
Mhm.
And then we would meet every few hours to say ki, what's the update, what's happening.
Mhm.
That helped. Decor, of course, was there.
Mhm.
So 2, 3 people were managing that. Uh, then we had to also see who has eaten, who has not eaten.
Mhm.
So I think a team of 8 to 10 volunteers
Right.
helped.
Mm-hmm.
If that was not there, then it wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah. So, according to you, if you had to pick three elements of magic in the design that made the event that it was, what would those
Mhm.
three things be?
Mm, One is definitely the selection of the space.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is, I think, at the top of my
Mm-hmm.
mind. The other is the performances,
Mm-hmm.
because those had to be planned in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the music band or the dance performance, those were a big part of the design. And the third would be, I think, the audience. I mean, the people who we choose, who we chose to invite, and those who chose to came.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big part of the
Right.
design.
And
Uh,
initially, you talked about, being balanced between taking, doing however doing it the way it's always been done to, outsourcing it to someone else.
Correct, correct.
So, what were the two, three things that you felt, which was that middle ground, right? So, you took something from how it's usually done, but you added also something that were unique or different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Um, I think the uniqueness came from the fact that uh, it was the whole thing was owned by
mm,
the people who were also coming. So nobody was really a
right.
guest. I mean,
Mm,
everybody was ready to volunteer if we would have asked them to. It
mm,
was not required because, of course, you don't need 200 volunteers for 200
mm.
people for practical
Yeah.
reasons. But I think that was one big
Mm,
differentiating factor. If I look at
mm,
some other gatherings that I have attended, and this one, uh, nobody really came as a guest except for some people who we were also meeting for the first time. We knew them through somebody, and we
mm,
just thought it'd be a good idea to invite
mm,
them.
mm, mm,
Um, yeah, that was one big unique thing. Other than that, um, there was a lot of curiosity in everyone to see, oh wow, we are, doing this for the first time. So what
yeah,
happened?
that really, yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of curiosity to the extent that some of our parents also came just to support us and see how we are doing it, and then to meet everybody else. Although it was more of a you can say a professional meet, and families were not invited as such, but they were like, okay, we'll also come and see what
See,
happens.
what all are you doing?
Yeah,
Ah,
and then the participants were also excited to see, okay, some family members have come, so
yeah.
let's go and interact with them. So it became a very internal,
Hmm.
homely
Nice.
event. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what I really liked what you said is you had different offerings or different things that were happening. So there were some things that people could really go and be where they wanted to be, whether it was
Correct.
just talk to a few people on their own or go to some of the, stalls,
Right,
as you said,
right,
and then of course the performances where everyone sort of just came together
correct.
very naturally and organically. So all of those parts made it interesting. Nice. Yeah. Great. So, of course, the next question is, how was the experience for those who attended? So, what are the kind of things, you heard people say
Hmm.
about it
Hmm.
later?
Hmm. Um, it would have varied, of course,
Hmm.
right? But I think overall, everybody got to know each other better. If they knew them earlier, they got a chance to reconnect after a long time, in person, especially.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, a lot of people had heard of other people, but never met them, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so, for example, a lot of young fellows who do the fellowship, they had heard of a lot of other organizations,
Hmm.
but those organizations' representatives were there that
Hmm.
day, so they got to meet them.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of initiation in that front happened. That okay,
Hmm.
now that we know each other, we can probably build this relationship further.
Mm.
Because abhi tak to those were just names, right?
Right.
There was no personal connect.
Mm.
And later on also we heard from many of them that, okay, I got to talk to this person, so now I'm thinking I'll write to them or
Oh,
visit
lovely.
them.
Mm.
Yeah, that was one big part of the experience for other people.
Mhm.
um, the other was, I think a lot of people also got a chance to understand the program better, what we are
Mm.
trying to do here,
Mm. Mm.
what is the purpose beyond just activities or
Mm.
tasks that are usually visible at the face of it, but
Mm.
what goes behind that, what is the team thinking, what are we looking to do for the next few years, because we also deliberately made space for those conversations.
Mm.
So I think a lot of that clarity got passed on in some way.
Nice.
And then there in the audience also there was a mix of people, right? There were people who have been associated with the program for 10 years.
Mm. Mm.
And then there were people who we have just met three
Mm.
months back.
Mm.
So the exchange between them was
Mm.
also fruitful in some way,
Mm.
to learn from each other,
Mm.
and for us also to learn from them as to what they are thinking,
Mhm.
uh, what uh, what are some challenges that they have faced in our association, but we have not realized that,
Mm.
or it has not been communicated very well from either of the ends.
Mm.
So it overall, I think it gave a lot of fruit for thought and uh, action items to work on with
Mm.
each other in the next few days or months, to just strengthen the relationships further.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting because in a way the mahal was very sort of festive and informal and
Mm,
people could just
mm,
engage. So how did you
mm.
manage to have these also meaningful, heavier conversations? Did they just happen, or so I'm curious how that got suppose nudged or facilitated.
So it happened with smaller groups.
Okay.
And so, for example, a lot of mentors had come in a day earlier.
Okay.
Like they had arrived last evening. And
Mm,
this morning, we had a 2 hour conversation with
mm,
25, 26 of them
mm, mm.
before the actual event started.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
was not during this gathering,
Right.
but
Right.
it was like a
Mm.
prequel to the to the gathering,
Yes.
for the lack
Yeah.
of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's also interesting, right? Because then it also people are coming anyway, so that's also a good
Ah,
thing, right? That how do you really maximize the time
right,
for
right.
and the experience for people who are anyways coming to your gathering, right? We only sometimes think of what we want to do, but we
Mm,
don't think of, okay, what can we do before and after in that same
mm,
time window. And
right.
it's nice that you felt that that needed a bit more of a focused conversation, and it was nice
Correct.
that was done before, and then this sort of a more relaxed uh, you know conversational style event followed it, which
Mm,
sort of
mm,
helped, right? Because those
yeah.
conversations flowed into this. So that's what I always admire about you all, that you all think a lot about how to really make the most of the time, the people. Because I think one of the things is you work with limited resources, and I feel that really pushes you to be creative. And also you're so cognizant of people's time, right? That you value that
Mm,
people are giving you this much time. Sorry,
mm.
this is not how usually Gathering Genie works, but I know so much about this group that I'm plugging in points on behalf of Swati. Yeah. And personally for you, like when the whole thing happened, and how are you feeling about the experience?
Um, Mainly two things. I think there is a stronger sense of community,
Mm.
because I was also meeting everyone together for the first time, right? I usually meet people in smaller groups. Mentors, one,
Mm.
fellows is one, then other partners separately. So we also don't meet everyone together. So in that sense, it was a little uh, overwhelming, but in a good way. There's
Mm.
a much stronger sense of community that I personally have
Mm.
now, and a much higher sense of gratitude also. because uh, I don't know, it just felt like I could do so much with so many people, even if even if I'm not working in this role anymore, there is just so much value in these relationships that I can always
Mm,
have them as friends or just people who I resonate with at some
mm,
level. Uh, so yeah, do you want me to expand on any of
mm.
this?
Yeah, I mean, you use the word relationships quite a few times, right? And I'd love
Yeah.
for you to maybe make a link between gatherings and relationships. And how do you see the connection between both?
Mm. So I think some gatherings are just gatherings. I mean,
Mm,
without any pressure of building or maintaining relationships, and those are great too.
mm,
Uh, but if you are gathering with the same group of people again and again, you do start building a relationship with
mm,
them.
mm,
And for me, I think the most important relationship is that of a friendship, right? Uh,
mm.
recently, one of our friends, he said that he was talking about his belief in friendships, and he said कि दोस्तियां हमें बचा सकती हैं अगर हम बचने लायक हैं तो. And I highly agree with that. And I think beyond the professional relationships again,
Mm,
I could strike certain friendship with everyone, be it a very senior mentor or somebody I had just gotten to know a few months ago. I
mm,
think there was a personal connect with everyone.
mm.
And that may or may not uh, stay if we don't work together. But I think in that moment, it felt really important and something that I would want to cherish um, for some time. Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Okay. So then moving forward, yeah, that's our sort of a closing question is, so what
Hmm.
according to you brings magic in gatherings? So if you had to zoom out and then generally look at gatherings whenever people come together, right, for
Hmm.
whatever purpose it may be,
Hmm. Hmm.
what three things would you say brings magic in gatherings?
Hmm. I think the intent with which people come and the values they bring
Mm,
in any gathering. So at India Fellow, we often say that authenticity is the most
no.
important value. So if
Yeah.
if you are bringing your most authentic self, then the rest of it will take care of itself. I
Mm,
mean,
mm,
we'll figure out what happens.
mm,
But if that is not there, then it could
mm,
be a problem.
mm,
So the values, the intent with which people come, and a common understanding of why we have gathered.
mm,
It should not be that one person is thinking something else while the other is here for some other reason. So
mm,
to have a common ground where everyone has the same definition of why we have gathered here. They may or may not agree with that. Of
mm,
course, they may have some
mm,
other purposes also,
mm.
but still to have a baseline uh, common ground.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Oh,
So
nice. So, do you have another gathering coming up where you want to experiment or try or do something
we do have
differently?
a training, like a learning space sort of a
Hmm.
gathering coming
Hmm.
up in May.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, it will be unique because it will be a new group. So with
Yeah.
every group also it
Yeah.
changes, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know the group yet, so I'm still getting to know them because it's a new group that's coming in. So once we in the team have a common understanding of what the group looks like, then we will begin to plan and design the gathering.
Oh, nice. Yeah. All the very best for that. And I hope you include those three magical elements into that gathering as well.
So
And yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation
same.
uh, and yeah, I mean, for people who are watching this, India Fellows is a lovely program, especially if you're a young person and wants to explore yourself and the country, nothing like it. So please do get in touch with them. And if you have a story like Swati's about a gathering you hosted, which was magical in your opinion, whether it's in a personal space, a community space, or workspace, please do get in touch with me and we can capture its story as well. Yay.
I
Thank
just want to add that a lot of this inspiration for gatherings has come from you. So I think people need to know that how you have initiated how India Fellow gathers people
Yeah, I know. It's
in
the
a lot of
most
ways.
special group, and you make me test and rethink that all the time. So I love the mutual learning that happens. Yay.
Yeah,
Yay. Thank you so much, Swati.
true.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.